Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the whole K-pop phenomenon. And we're not just going to talk about the music. Nope, we're going deep into the system behind it all. This incredibly efficient, almost industrial process that manufactures global superstars. All right, let's just jump right in. So let's start with a number that's, well, it's kind of hard to even wrap your head around. 1.5 billion. That's how many views a single music video from a group like Blackpink can get. K-pop isn't just popular anymore, it's a full-on global force of nature. So you have to ask yourself, how does this happen? Is it just talent and a whole lot of luck? Well, not exactly. The real secret here isn't about finding stars, it's about building them. And that leads us to the real question. How is this level of polished, synchronized perfection even possible? Over and over again, on a worldwide scale. Okay, so what is the secret sauce here? The answer lies in a pretty powerful and honestly unique blueprint. It's a whole system designed not just to discover talent, but to literally engineer the perfect pop star from the ground up. Let's take a look at the philosophy that kicked this all off. It all comes down to this one core idea, something called culture technology, or CT. This was popularized by Lee Suman, the founder of SM Entertainment, and it's a really radical idea. It's the belief that pop culture isn't something you just hope to discover. It's something you can actually engineer, standardize, and then export, just like a piece of software or a car. This completely flips the Western model on its head. Instead of finding stars, the goal is to build them. So, if you're going to engineer culture, what do you need? Well, you need a factory. And this philosophy gives rise to what a lot of people call the idol factory. It's a term that just perfectly captures the whole process. A super structured, step-by-step assembly line designed to produce global pop stars with incredible efficiency. And just like any factory, this one has a very clear 4-stage assembly line. First, you've got talent acquisition. That's finding the raw materials through massive global searches. Second, trainee incubation, where you refine that raw talent. Third is product development, which is when you finally assemble the group. And last, number 4, is the market launch, sending the finished product out into the world. But here's the thing. Before you can even set foot on that assembly line, you have to get through the front door. And the odds of that are, well, let's just say they're steeper than you could possibly imagine. And this right here is what that steep climb looks like. It's called the idol funnel, and it is absolutely brutal. You start at the top with over 1 million applicants from all over the world every year. From that million, only about 1,000 get offered trainee contracts. Those 1,000 are then filtered down to maybe 100 who are considered debut candidates. From there, you get 10 or so final members for a group, and out of all of that, maybe 1 becomes a true commercial success. Yeah, it all boils down to this one kind of insane number. Your chance of going from an applicant to a commercially successful idol is a staggering 0.01%. The entire system is built on this really harsh math. You need a massive, massive volume of hopefuls at the start just to produce a handful of polished successes at the end. Okay, so what about that tiny, tiny fraction who actually make it in? Well, for them, life becomes what's known as the incubator. And that means total immersion. We're talking 12-hour training days, 7 days a week, living together in controlled dorms, following incredibly strict rules. No dating, weekly weight checks, all while you're under the constant pressure of monthly evaluations where, you could be cut at any moment. But creating the perfect idol is really only half the battle. Once the product is assembled and ready to go, the machine needs to sell it. So now let's look at how the business side of this factory is just as engineered as the artists themselves. The business model has gotten way more sophisticated than just selling music. I mean, sure, the direct revenue from things like albums and concerts is still important, but the real engine of growth, that's indirect revenue. This is the big shift, where the idol isn't just the product. They are the intellectual property, the IP, that fuels everything else. Merchandise, exclusive content, and these huge fan platforms. And you can see this strategy playing out when you look at the revenue mix of the top agencies. Hybe, the agency behind BTS, is the perfect example. A huge slice of their revenue comes directly from their own platform, Weavers. This is the end game. They aren't just creating stars anymore. They're building and controlling the entire ecosystem where fans get to interact with those stars. So you might be wondering, who pays for all this intensive training? That brings us to one of the most controversial parts of the whole system, trainee debt. See, the agencies cover the cost of everything, the lessons, the housing, the food, but it's not an investment, it's a loan. Idols have to pay all of that money back from their earnings after they debut, which means many of them don't actually see a paycheck for years.
This relentless, high-stakes system is incredibly efficient at producing stars. There's no doubt about that. But that efficiency comes at a cost. And we have to talk about the human element and the pretty significant dark side that comes with this drive for manufactured perfection.
As effective as the factory is, some pretty major cracks are starting to show in the walls. The intense pressure and total lack of privacy are linked to a serious mental health crisis among idols. Because the image has to be so perfect, they're incredibly vulnerable to scandals. And the top-down, manufactured nature of it all can really stifle an artist's own creativity, especially early on in their careers. So what's the future of this model? What's the next evolution? Well, the system has become so successful that it's no longer just exporting the pop groups. Now it's starting to export the entire factory itself. And to really get why this factory model is so exportable, it helps to see it right next to the traditional Western approach. The Western model is fundamentally about discovery. Labels are looking for an artist who's already pretty much the finished article. The K-pop model, on the other hand, is all about manufacturing, taking raw potential and building an artist from scratch in a controlled, in-house boot camp. And that manufacturing process? It's going global. The strategy is being called globalization by localization. You're seeing K-pop agencies partnering with Western labels to create idol groups made up of local talent, but trained using that same K-pop methodology. Groups like Katsuie in the US, Niziu in Japan, and Vicha, also in the US, these are the very first products coming off of these new global assembly lines. Which leaves us with a really fascinating and honestly a critical question for the future. The Idol Factory is expanding its operations worldwide, but as it becomes a global standard for producing pop stars, can K-pop truly exist without the K? That is something the entire music industry is watching very, very closely.